continuous coalition in the first elections. We only had 6 seats for the entire coalition. I think we will have more, we'll try to create better techniques in building those coalitions. The Liberal camp is now more focused on building consensus, and at the same time we're in a better position to get more seats now.
So if we're speaking about the political timeline, in the case of a yes vote or in the case of a no vote,
yes,
what is going to be happening on the political scene, and what are the Liberal steps in order to be moving towards the parliamentary elections if it's a yes vote?
Well, if the yes vote, we all have to focus on the elections, which we're already late, because again the Freedom and Justice Party had started that, because more or less they will be putting the laws for the elections in the upper house, in the Shura Council. So they know exactly, they have an advantage, because they will be able to put the district distribution of the districts and the maps for the elections, the electoral map. So they have an advantage in reaching out to the communities right now, yes, which the Liberal camp does not have. Now the other thing is that having the Shura Council more or less dominated by the Islamic camp gives them another edge. The Liberals have to immediately start negotiating among the parties and their alliances, and start putting consensus about the next steps, and compromising about the number of seats that they each want to share, and where will they be spending and allocating resources for those seats. Yeah. Because it's not a very smart thing to enter competition in areas where it's locked for the Muslim Brotherhood. So they need to strategize among themselves and their allies. If it's a no, then I think it will be a good thing for even President Morsi to get out of his predicament. It will give him much more space to be able to work with the opposition. Yeah. Of course, if the results is no, that means it's a good indicator of the opposition having a broader coalition that wins a majority in the parliament, which would change the rules of engagement completely in the political scene, and will create a paradigm shift. Now, that is not a bad thing, because you need that balance in the political scene. The Muslim Brotherhood feels they don't have a competition, so they act whimsically. Whatever comes up, they put it as is, without negotiating, without having the need or fear to work under pressure with others. So hopefully we'll see some sort of balance take place.
What you're saying today is a swift transformation for the Liberals. That's your point of view, which is focusing, if it's a yes vote, focusing on the upcoming parliamentary elections and the campaigns and the weaknesses.
Yes.
But if we're looking at the opposition in general and the Liberal forces in general, you'll find them a little bit hesitant or not focused towards a specific direction. They were protesting right before the referendum, yes, and they were calling to boycott and the cancellation of the referendum, and they were just there giving their votes and providing sort of legitimacy to the referendum itself. And then, yes, right after the first round, they came out to say there was a lot of violation and they're not accepting the referendum, and despite this fact they'll be entering for another round for the referendum, and they'll be starting protesting rather than what you mentioned is focusing towards the upcoming parliamentary elections, or the upcoming political battle, if I may say.
Well, it really depends on the final results of the referendum, how big the margins are. As I told you, if we get a 70% for the yes camp, I don't think the opposition will be in a position to just demonstrate and go down that road. They will immediately have to work with the reality of the situation and immediately work on parliamentary elections, because that's another lost fight if you continue to protest. I remember being in Muhammad Mahmoud during the last weeks of my campaign, because I ran for elections in Parliament last year, and we were dragged to Muhammad Mahmoud, which was a sidetrack, and we drifted into it. We left our campaigns, we suspended our campaigns, while the Muslim Brotherhood was actively engaging the bases and the grassroots all over the country. So we lost a lot of ground for them. Sometimes in many situations we could have easily gained ground at their expense had we not been dragged in Muhammad Mahmoud.
How would you, sorry, please go.
You go.
How would you, you know, there is a specific, an obvious weakness for the liberal forces, which is the inclined, maybe poor people towards the Islamist parties, while the liberal forces are seen more towards the educated and the richer levels of the society. How are you going to deal with this, specifically that the poor are much more in terms of mass than the educated and rich people?
I think it's not a much of a rich versus poor, rather than religious versus secular. And that's exactly how the Muslim Brotherhood portrayed it for the past 2 years, in order to increase the sharpness of the polarization, so that people would be intimidated to vote for a non-Islamic camp. Now, that is the real challenge. But Egyptians are smart when it comes to where their real interest lies. If they know that the liberals can deliver opportunities, economic growth, and more jobs, they'll vote for the liberals at the end of the day, no matter how religious the discourse is. But if you can prove to the people you can bring jobs with the right policies, then that will make a great difference.
But how would you be able to reach those people, these poor people, in terms of connectivity maybe? Because
yes.
As you said in the beginning, the Muslim Brotherhood already has a good network regarding the poor people in some
True.
poor or rural areas here in Cairo, and of course outside the capital. How would you reach these people to make them know about the economic plans of your party?
Well, let me tell you something. First of all, even the networks, the amazing networks of the Brotherhood have parameters. They do not exceed a certain critical mass. If you remember, in the first round of elections, in the presidential elections, President Morsi had 5.5 million votes, and this is the ultimate impact of the Islamic camp's vote. When he won by, when he got 13 million votes, that's a difference of 8 million votes. It was because of those other people who do not usually give their votes to the Islamic camp, who know that their interest lies on certain issues. So it was the revolutionists, the secularists, and those independent people who gave their vote to Morsi in the second round that made him win. It's not the Islamic camp. And this is why consistently and continuously President Morsi tried several times to bring back the parliament that was disbanded, because they know they'll get much less seats in the next coming elections.
But why didn't he try to regain the power of the parliament when he had actually issued the constitutional declaration in the first place? A lot of people said that he is going instantly to regain the parliament.
Well, first of all, because it's not constitutional, because there's already a Supreme Court ruling on the issue. So it would, and he at the time claimed that he's not gonna go against constitutionality, and that he vowed to protect the Constitution. So he tried twice, but the internal and external pressure was much bigger than his ability to bring back that parliament.
And you think the upcoming parliamentary elections will not be with the same majority, with the same sweeping victory for the Islamist parties?
Definitely, definitely.
They're claiming that they're going to be addressing more focus, or maybe trying to get more grounds and more seats, more than what they have previously achieved.
Yes. Well, I think in a best case scenario for the Islamists, if they get 60% in the coming parliament, if they achieve that, that would be an amazing victory for them.
What about the divisions and the differences that are taking place here in Egypt, especially after the constitutional declaration and the various demonstrations taking place everywhere in Egypt? Do you think that all this can disappear after the constitution was being approved maybe or passed?
Well, you will definitely have groups who will continuously, for perhaps the next couple of years, try to advocate for reform in the Constitution, and you'll definitely, that's not going to be the end of the protest for sure. That's why I feel like we've been always cheated by the word stability, that it's been abused on and on and on since the first referendum on the 19th of March. Because have we had any sort of stability since then? Absolutely not. So the word stability has been abused, and we will not have any stability in any recent time. because
Without
of this
consensus,
constitutional and because of the polarization. Yeah.
Right. Finally, Ahmad Naguib, member of the Egyptian Current Party, I'd like to thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
My pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Now let's move on.